My mother-in-law took off her wet clothes and I couldn't resist. She considered me very affectionate. So when I got married 7 years ago, it marked the end of my relationships with other women, naturally, except for my wife. When I put the wedding ring on the finger of my chosen one, I understood clearly that this was my choice, that she was my better half and my last love. I had never been so sure before, but life has its own plans for us. Without asking permission after the wedding, we started living apart, although my wife's mother had a nice house in the suburbs where she lived alone. My wife's parents' life did not go well, and her father decided that his wife would raise his daughter alone. I do not judge his decision, but I still hear the pain in my wife's voice when she talks about her father. A year after our marriage, my wife made me happy with the news that we would soon be parents. I literally carried her in my hands, never wanting to leave her alone, not even for a moment did I run to the store in the middle of the night when my beloved desperately needed to eat pickled herring with sugar or l'herbe for shoes. My wife shared with her mother how she was taking care of me, and from my mother-in-law I only received approval and kind words. Sometimes I wondered if my beloved mother-in-law praised me many times more than my own wife, but I attributed it to the pregnancy of my wife and her constant moodiness and discomfort. 3 months after finding out I was going to be a father, my wife and I went for a routine ultrasound. When the doctor asked us if we knew we were expecting twins, I literally jumped around the doctor's office like a child and exclaimed joyful exclamations. My beloved instead covered her face with her hands, and through her ambiguous bears I understood that she was crying. She was in a state of SOC. I was not expecting twins. She wandered around the apartment constantly repeating, "What are we doing now? How will we live?" I could not console her. 3 full days passed. For that my wife stopped crying and decided to visit her mother to share the news in person, instead of surprising her on the phone. All this time I knew Angelica as a very polite person. However, when we told her about our pregnancy and the fact that there would be 2 babies, she erupted like a volcano. She laughed, she cried, but her tears were warm and kind. She was genuinely happy, and even started calling herself the high-heel grandma, since she was still working at the time. Then she threw a joke at me which I completely deleted. The barriers between us. To be honest, Lucas was starting to think your gun was out of bullets and your ammo was fake. I hadn't laughed this hard in a long time. I replied proudly that all I needed was a target and I would hide it right away. Surprisingly, the 3 trimesters passed quickly. My wife gave birth to the most beautiful babies. We named James and Evely. We had a family meeting and it was decided that my mother-in-law would help us for the first month. She took a leave of absence from work and moved into our apartment. That's when everything went out of control. My wife became very nervous and irritable. She constantly said that she no longer felt like a woman and considered herself nothing more than food for our twins. My mother-in-law tried to calm her down, but it only led to conflicts. The twins took turns sleeping. For a month there was never a time when they both slept at the same time. I went to work as if it were a holiday, despite the pile of papers and the amount of tasks. I could somehow relax. My mother-in-law also confessed that she dreamed of back to work. Soon meanwhile the month came to an end and Angelica had to leave us and return to work. My wife was struggling immensely. She became more aggressive and indifferent. Sometimes she locked herself in the bathroom to avoid hearing the baby's cries. When she understood that my wife was not I couldn't cope, I started working from home and taking care of the kids during the day. This went on for 10 months and I thought things couldn't get any worse, but then the kids started walking. I felt like a zookeeper or a supervisor on a project. Wildlife conservation trying to save an endangered species. While James was trying to put something in the toilet, Evely was washing her hands in the same toilet when Olivia fell asleep. James felt it was his duty to touch his sister with his finger. In summary, we were fighting and venting our anger and exhaustion on each other. The disputes began once when my mother-in-law came to visit and overheard our last argument. My wife and I received a scolding that I will remember for the rest of my life. Angelica was strict and very determined, and I found myself enjoying myself going back to work. I continued working from home to make things easier, including financially. We stopped renting an apartment and we all moved to my mother-in-law's house. My wife left early for work and returned quite late. She practically only saw the children and me when they were asleep. She decided to dedicate herself to work, and it must be said that she achieved quite good results towards me. She became cold and indifferent. I felt it, but still the man in me took over, and when everyone was asleep I literally begged for my 10 minutes of marital duty with my mother-in-law. Everything was much simpler. We spent time together, cribbed the children. We drank tea, we went for walks, we watched television together. I began to notice that I liked his smell. He was somehow intelligent and very attractive when he dressed in tight jeans to go out for a walk. I couldn't take my eyes off her. But that was swaying slightly as she walked. One day Angelica was cleaning the floors and I was walking distracted with my phone. It happened that we collided. She was on her back and I was looking forward. I immediately felt desire that was clearly visible. To my surprise, my mother-in-law ran her hand through her hair and gently bit her lip. I didn't know how to interpret it and decided to pretend that nothing had happened. The next day we were preparing dinner together and I dropped a knife on the floor. My mother-in-law bent down to pick it up. And when I did, the neckline of her blouse sank. And I saw her underwear barely covering her breasts. Again I felt a wave of desire for everything and I couldn't hide it. "Is there something you want to tell me?" asked my mother-in-law. "I'm afraid of saying too much," I responded, barely containing them. Moving from one foot to the other, and then simply I said I felt like the kids were crying. But then my wife came back from a business trip and confessed that she had cheated on me with her boss. To say that I felt deeply upset would be false. In some ways I was even happy because morally she had already been unfaithful to me. Wife, but only with her own mother. We decided that as long as the children were small, we would pretend to be a happy family, and in a few years you would decide how to proceed. It was a cold day outside. My wife went on a hike. Business trip again. I was alone at home with him. My children and my mother-in-law were visiting a friend after putting my twins to bed. I was watching television. My mother-in-law, he returned late at night, happy and little drunk. He had gone out without an umbrella and I was soaked. I saw that she was shaking. And I started to help her take it off. Coat and blouse. And before me. I knew it, she was standing in front of me. Only in underwear this. It's wet too, he said and took everything off. Effortlessly we spent the whole night together. One of the best nights of my life. The desired mother-in-law was really mine. For one night and in the morning I woke up and there was only a note on the table. Who said that everything that happened was a error resulting from wine and nothing more this. It should stay between us. I will stay. With my sister your children are old enough to go to school. Daycare you will manage without me. I'll tell my daughter I'm babysitting one. Sick sister don't even call me. I mentioned what happened, I threw the note away. But I can't delete one of the best nights of my life from my mind. Years have passed. We got divorced and our surprise the children took it quite calmly. My ex-wife often. She takes them to the sea to her new husband's house. Your old boss to be honest. I don't regret anything in my mind. She is still his mother and that night I know everything is wrong but I can't help. I need your advice please. What do I do with all this?
If you found the video entertaining, hit the like button and subscribe. This way I'll know you liked it and it will motivate me to bring more. See you in the next video. See you later and take care.